think it's going to be good.
Mr. President, how do you rate your chances of winning the Nobel Peace Prize tomorrow?
Well, I don't know. Look, I made 7 deals, and now it's 8. Solved the wars, one going 31 years, one going 34 years, one going 35 years, one going 10 years. I made 7 deals. This would be number 8. The one I thought that I was going to make, and I think we will probably, is because it's a ridiculous war. It's a horrible war. The worst since World War II. If you look at the people dying, is Russia, Ukraine. I think we'll do that too. We've a lot of reasons for them to do it, and I think they'll be coming to the table pretty soon. But this is the biggest of them all. This is a big one. Although I think India and Pakistan is very big. 2 nuclear nations. I did that based on trade and because of the tariffs. If we didn't have tariffs, you wouldn't have been able to do it. But I said, if you guys are going to fight, I'm putting 100% tariffs on each of you. And they immediately stopped fighting, and that was going to go nuclear. You know, that was back and forth. So I know one thing. I don't know what they're going to do really, but I know this: that nobody in history has solved 8 wars in a period of 9 months, and I've stopped 8 wars. So that's never happened before. But they'll have to do what they do. Whatever they do is fine. I know this. I didn't do it for that. I did it because I saved a lot of lives. And that's the thing that bothers me so much about the Russia-Ukraine. 7,000 people are dying a week. Young soldiers. They're almost all soldiers of Ukraine and Russia. So in theory, it doesn't affect us, no, but it's a terrible thing. And we'll get that solved too. But nobody has ever done 8 wars. Nobody's done 8 wars in 30 years, let alone 9 months.
Are you going to step up?
8 wars in 9 months. I don't know how somebody can sit next to him with poker face and not to laugh. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian, and thank you very much for tuning in, whether you're watching this stream on YouTube, on Rumble, or engaging Word. Unfortunately, I cannot thank our dear friend with Access for moderating the live chat because he has an important thing to solve, a family matter for the next probably 2 weeks. So we will miss him, but I'm sure that everybody will continue, let's say, in a civilized manner in the live chat on Syriana Analysis. Today, we are diving into episode 27 of Cold War 2.0, and honestly, few weeks have captured the surreal state of global politics like this one. We have Zelenskyy, who says he will nominate Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize if Trump sends Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine and helps negotiate a ceasefire with Russia, because apparently in this new world, peace now comes with a lunch, coat, and tomahawks. Meanwhile, Moscow's patience has officially run out, or this is what we are reading in the press. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergey Ryabkov declared that the Alaska talks with Trump have exhausted themselves. Russia sees no reason to keep negotiating while the US doubles down on weapons and Europe flirts with escalation. And speaking of Europe, it is becoming a theater of contradictions. In Poland, the Prime Minister openly defends the Nord Stream sabotage, calling it acceptable, while Hungary's Peter Szijjártó, maybe I'm butchering his name, warns that this kind of logic.
It's okay.
Yeah. So Hungary's foreign minister warned that this kind of logic turns Europe into a terrorist playground. And just as you thought you heard it all, it seems that Germany is preparing its biggest Arctic drills in 30 years, missiles, torpedoes, and the whole spectacle, while an MP in the German Bundestag quietly debating bringing back mandatory conscription in the German army. So yes, my friends, it's been another week in Cold War 2.0, war packaged as peace, diplomacy reduced to a theater, and behind it all a political class that has forgotten the meaning of diplomacy and restraint. To unpack it all, we have, as always, every Friday, our dear friend, Dr. Tarik Cyril Amar, historian and political analyst, as we break down what these headlines really mean and what they reveal about the West's new normal. Dear Tarik, Tomahawk versus Peace Nobel Prize for Donald Trump. Is this a conditional support from Zelenskyy? Is this an intimidation? What added value does this bring to Donald Trump's nomination for a Nobel Peace Prize under such circumstances? And what does it tell about the prize itself when this is coming with a price, and that is more missiles to Ukraine?
Well, he hasn't got the prize, so that didn't work, right? But it's absurd. I can only agree with you. It's completely insane, obviously, right, to actually address the Nobel Peace Prize Committee and say, look, if I get like a very powerful weapon, then please give the prize to the guy who gives it to me. On the other hand, the Nobel Peace Prize is named after a guy who invented dynamite, right? So it's maybe it's all very consistent. And on a more serious note, as many people have pointed out today, the Nobel Prizes are very different, right? I mean, if you think about the prizes that are handed out in the natural sciences, right, where I'm not very competent at all, but from the little I understand is that they're quite, they're handed out for substantial achievements, which may be for better or for worse in the end, but they are measurable, quantifiable, almost substantial achievements. Now, then you have Nobel Prizes for literature, which are always much more political, right? I mean, yes, some people deserve them and some people actually are mediocrities and they get them because, there's a certain type of system of handing them out by quota, as it were. And then there are Nobel Prizes, obviously, for economics. Economists will hate me for saying this, but I think those are handed out for ideology. I don't think economics is a hard science. I'm sorry. I know they use a lot of math, but I don't think they're a hard science. I think it's an ideology that has essentially encapsulated itself in mathematical formulas and impresses everybody that way.
Yeah.
And then you have the worst of them all, those for peace. Those are the worst, right? I mean, those are plainly absurd, and they have been absurd for a long time. Obama got one.
Yes.
I mean, slaughterer of the weddings, king of the drone murder. Kissinger got one, right? Kissinger, who had his hand in every dirty thing that went down in his period, and it was far too long, from Chile to Indonesia, right?
Yeah.
Kissinger, Nobel Peace Prize.
Shimon Peres, right, also received the Nobel Peace Prize, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Peace of the Strong and all that, right?
Yeah.
So the Nobel Peace Prizes have been insane for a long time, and they'll never be. Look, let me put it like this. I don't want to offend anybody. I really don't. But I have
Please
to
do.
I have to be honest. I have to be honest. And my honest opinion is that anybody who takes the Nobel Peace Prize seriously would have taken the Stalin prizes seriously in the Soviet Union. Right? Now, would have thought that's not politics. That's something else. That's sheer quality. Right? The Nobel Peace Prize is an ultra-politicized, absurd prize and has been that for a long time. And in that sense, you can sort of even understand Donald Trump, because if you see who it has already been given to, you could almost be cynical and say, why not to Trump? If Obama got it, who was a real slaughterer, why not to Trump? If Kissinger got it, who was as close to the devil incarnate as I can imagine in human form, why not to Trump? Right? It's insane. It's an insane prize, and it would sort of fit an insane guy like Trump, right? But so I'm not astonished that Zelenskyy, to come back to your question, another person who's never really quite with it, whether he has been sniffing a lot of stuff or not, I think he has permanent damage. Zelenskyy, of course, is just trying to flatter Trump. That's all this is, right? Consider how Zelenskyy and Trump set out, and this goes back years to his first presidency. They've had a very difficult relationship, and only a few months ago, Trump humiliated Zelenskyy as nobody, I think, has ever been humiliated, at least not in recent history, in the White House before, right? I mean, he basically gave him a horrific dressing down in front of the world, right?
Yep.
And now Zelenskyy is in Trump's good books, right? This has changed. It can change again. But I think what Zelenskyy has learned through all of this, and I think he's been coached, literally coached by his European friends, is that the right approach to get anything from Trump is to grovel. Throw yourself in the dust, cover your hair with dust, and grovel at his feet. And this is what Zelenskyy is doing. It costs him nothing. So he is advancing this completely insane little flattery. Netanyahu tried the same thing, if you remember, right? Netanyahu, a month or so, was in Washington again. As you know, Netanyahu spends half his time in Washington because he's got to run the United States too, right? It's a tough job being the boss of Israel and of the US. And so he was in Washington again. And when Trump wasn't busy pushing the chair under Netanyahu's behind, like an obsequious waiter, right? Netanyahu handed Trump, in front of running cameras, of course, a piece of paper and said, and this, by the way, Mr. President, is our nomination for you for the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, it's outrageous. We are in a dark comedy. We have this emperor in Washington who is childish. There is a childish side to Trump. The last emperor in Washington was senile. Totally senile, right? And a mass murderer. And this one is childish, completely childish, and also complicit up until now in Israeli mass murder, right? So, and everybody knows the way you get to this guy is to suck up. And this explains, to come back to the last person involved, Stube, right? The guy sitting next to him, being quiet, that was Stube of Finlandia. Right? Or Finland. No, it's Finland. I'm being mean. So Stube is one of the Europeans who does it best, sucking up to Trump, right? I mean, Mark Rutte is unbeatable. But Stube is the second, definitely, really close runner-up, right? And so, you had like a sort of a whole picture there of the flattery of the new emperor of the Western world. That's all that's going on here. It's ridiculous.
You know, I think Donald Trump also deserves the Nobel Peace Prize for bringing peace between Albania and Azerbaijan. These two countries that he has been, he continued misspelling Armenia and Azerbaijan and continued saying Albania and Azerbaijan. And then the Prime Minister of Albania mocked Trump to Macron, told him, you should congratulate Aliyev and me. Trump ended the conflict between us.
You should make an apology to us. Because you didn't congratulate us for the peace deal that President Trump made between Albania and Azerbaijan.
I'm sorry for that.
Yeah. So, and you worked very hard. He worked very hard. We had 500.
I think
these guys.
we're making a little bit fun here because of the absurdity of the matter, and I nominated this guy for Nobel Peace Prize for next year. Hopefully he would win, because if
is that Zelenskyy again?
The same guy, but the Syrian version of Zelenskyy. Why I'm bringing this, because today we learned that the Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided to award the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize to Maria Corina Machado for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. This has become a mockery. Mockery.
But it's always been a mockery. I don't want to downplay it. You're right. It's another peak performance, right? The Nobel Peace Prize, it's one of those things, Kevork, I think, if I think about it, it's whenever you think you've seen the worst, they'll do even worse.
Yes,
they always beat you in the end.
It feels like they're normalizing it, you know?
Yeah, of course. On the other hand, let me say one thing. I think there's a glimmer of hope, which is that, look, how many people really are there who take this seriously anymore? How many? I can't believe it. I mean, there must be many people like us who look at this and are just completely done with it, frankly.
Yeah. I will show you something about this woman, and I didn't know, to be honest, that in Venezuela we also have a very strong, or let's say on the opposition side, pro-Israeli camp, and she basically, the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado once wrote to Israeli war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu and asked him to help to overthrow Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro. In 2025, you get a Nobel Peace Prize for trying to convince a foreign genocidal apartheid state, this is Afshin says, to attack your own country and overthrow its leadership so that Washington can privatize the largest natural oil reserves in the world. This is she is talking here.
Maria Corina Machado, gracias. Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you, and we'll stay in touch. And I promise one day we'll have a close relationship between Venezuela and Israel. And I believe, and I can announce this, that our government will move our Israeli embassy to Jerusalem. That will be part of our support to the state of Israel.
Whoa.
Imagine my shock. Imagine my shock. I'm sure we will also find some photos of her in Jerusalem near the wall very soon.
Yeah, there must be some wall photos. If she doesn't have a wall photos yet, she has got to get them, you know. Whenever I see all our Western politicians standing at the wall, you know, from Rubio, Trump, Biden, Milei, all the German ones, you name it, they're all standing at the wall. I always feel, you know what's really going on with that wall? Maybe I've said it before, but it's my pet theory. The Israelis have put all the blackmail material, all the tapes they have on these guys into that wall. And there they're standing and they're like sobbing over all the stuff that the Israelis have to control them. That's the wailing you hear from the Western political class.
There is a meme about this. They bring every American politician, put Chinese hat over their head near the Jerusalem wall, and they say, "Look how this is it." And they're fact checking this. Oh my God! They say, "Look how the Chinese are controlling our politicians."
It's ridiculous. Come on, it's completely... Look, I mean, you've had Matt Gaetz coming out recently, right? And what he was reporting is how AIPAC actually handles American congressmen, literally handles them. And frankly, I have to say, what he described, to me, it was a mixture of prostitution and a slave auction. Literally, right? So what he was saying is that they are all milling around, all these congressmen, that's not nobody, right? And they have QR codes that they're wearing.
Can I show this video, Tarik, to our audience?
Do it.
Context, because I think this is very important. I was fascinated that there are QR codes.
Initially, I resented the fact that there was no appreciation for nuance. Like if you asked any questions about any decision of the Israeli government in any place regarding settlements, regarding Gaza, whatever, you were like, you had deviated from the script. And I just, in any policy area, I had resentment over that. And then I saw the way the AIPAC worked, and that was weird for like a country lawyer like me. I remember my first AIPAC reception, and like your fundraiser tells you have to go, and your chief of staff tells you have to go, your committee chairman all tell you have to go, and you get there and you wear this name badge, and I remember there's a QR code on it, and what we were supposed to do was go talk to donors, and then if they liked you, they scanned your QR code to make a donation, like on the spot. And so
it's like a ship that you can buy, with a QR code or something.
I'm telling you, what is this, right? But look, I'm sorry, because I distracted us, and it's my fault, from Machado, right? Machado, we have to say a little bit more about her. I mean, Machado is, I was tempted to say fascinating, but first of all, I say that too often. And the second thing is, fascinating isn't really the right word. She isn't fascinating. She's pretty revolting, to be honest, because they're selling her as this democracy activist, right? And I have this attitude that I don't want to overcomment on domestic tension and conflicts in countries I'm not a part of, right? So I'm actually reluctant to say a lot about this, right? That the struggle between her and, say, Maduro, that's a struggle inside Venezuela. And I'm very happy, and I think that's a sign of respect, to leave that to Venezuelans. But here's the big but and the problem. The problem is that she has repeatedly called on foreigners to step in and to literally invade her country. And in that way, she is like those exile Iranians. Many of them actually are Israeli bots, as we now know, right? Those exile Iranians who, whenever Iran gets bombed again by the Israelis and the US, say, yes, more, we love it, bring back the Shah. Because that's the point where they leave the rules of an internal conflict, right? This is, if a conflict is in your family and in your country, that's one thing. But if you call on the foreigners, you become a traitor. And there are very few exceptions. I grant that there are maybe exceptions to this rule. I mean, I imagine somebody in Nazi Germany saying, I hope the Soviets come and deal with these bastards. I can see that. That's okay. But usually, the Nazis are not very good examples because they're so extreme. They're not a good analogy to most things. Usually, you shouldn't call on foreigners to do violence to your own people and pretend that that's your way of saving your own people. That's perverse. And especially if you do it, if you're in Latin America and you do it with Americans, because everybody in Latin America knows what Americans are capable of once they're in Latin America, as they usually are. And on top of it, if you also do that with Israelis, because as was rightly pointed out, if you turn to the Israelis for help, you turn to genociders. You turn to genociders for help. Really, you're sicking genociders on your own people. That's your understanding of promoting democracy? Thank you very much. Definitely.
I just want to thank very quickly for Sevag and Rami for gifting Syriana Analysis memberships to our audience. And I want to draw parallels, Tarik, with an example from the past of someone. She was Syrian, or she is Syrian. This is from 2013, when all the talk was Assad must go, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, John Kerry, etc. And they found one, sorry to say, useful idiot from the Alawite community who was very vocal and supportive of regime change. So Deputy Secretary of State Burns back then presented the Human Rights Defenders Award to the Syrian activist Hanadi Zahalut. Now, what do you think happened? What do you think happened after regime change? Can you speculate, Tarik, what happened after the regime change?
No. You tell me. I'm sorry, you're the Syrian person. You tell me.
So after the regime change, Jolani's thugs killed 2 of her brothers in Syria because simply they were Alawites. They slaughtered them, murdered them, and now she's giving lectures. Syrian activist Hanadi Zahalut delivers heart-wrenching plea for justice at UN Human Rights Council. So this is the problem with many of these so-called activists, that they buy into the illusion and the delusion, let's say, that the US cares about human rights in their own country, and they feel how to say, like, the Americans are amazing in making you feel important, right? And this is how they're treating now Jolani, like giving him the red carpet. They have done it to many others in the past. But this is the persuasion that they always playing on your emotions, making you feel important so that you would be embedded with them. But once they squeeze you, they just throw you into the bin. And what is this woman now from the US? Is she able to influence the US foreign policy in Syria? No. They are supporting the killers of her brothers, right? 2 of her brothers. She no longer has siblings. She received an award from the US State Department, which supports today the killers of her brothers.
Look, it's even a little more ironic than that, if that's the correct word. I'm very sorry for her brothers. I'm not sorry for her, because I think her brothers didn't deserve it. She, in a way, deserves it. But Burns, of course, right? Burns, of course, after that position, went on to head the CIA for a long time, right? And then retired. Now, listen, we all understand if somebody ends their career directing the CIA, they've been with the CIA forever before that, right? Yes. He was always with the CIA, right? Only at the end, it became open, and he was rewarded by being the director before he got his pension. That's Burns, right? And so she has really been in touch with some of the most malign forces in America, and there are a lot of them, with the Department of State and the CIA. And it is tragic, if that is the word, that she has taken these peoples and their promises seriously. Dealing with them is like dealing with the devil. You know, if you make a pact with the devil will promise you beautiful things, and he will pay a lot of attention to you. But we all know how it ends in hell, always. Right? It's terrible. But the other thing I wanted to say, look at Zelenskyy and Giuliani. Look at this woman and Machado. I mean, I'm sorry, what is it with the physical resemblance? It's. I mean, we all make this joke, but really, are they making them in the same lab? Are they cloning these guys?
Yes, it looks even the same dress code. Unfortunately, nowadays, Tarik, I don't know how to explain this, but many people, at least in my country, they feel flattered by an endorsement from the U.S. administration, from a think tank. They receive scholarships. I know people, like, personally, who even later joined the anti-Assad camp and have become really rich. Like there are lots of, let's say, ups for them, financial, career, you get the VIP treatment, etc. And this is what the empire is, why the empire is ahead of other countries, right? The empire has the money, empire can uplift some people financially, and that is why it is important for the whatever we are seeking or aspiring for a multipolar world, in a multipolar world, to have or to establish a parallel economic system. And this is something that up until this moment is not being delivered by any of the countries, whether it is China, whether it is Russia, whether a combination of countries, whether it is BRICS. We are still in the era of talk, and the era of theories and websites and platforms being created, photo ops, people are going and meeting with officials in conferences, but actual tangible steps on the ground is not yet done in this regard. Therefore, the empire will always have the upper hand in persuading and attracting this type of people, and the rest who have a little bit of conscience and dignity, they will oppose the US out of frustration and out of because I don't want to be subjugated by you and I don't want to live under your mercy. That's why many people resent and revolt against the US empire, right? But that is not enough, because nowadays the US with one click could delete this YouTube channel, right? Like if one third or fourth level of employee in the US administration or in the CIA now makes a call to YouTube, they could delete you from the entire, your presence is gone in the digital world, right? And this is also something that, where is the alternative? Where are the alternatives? Why the alternatives are always coming from the US? Even Rumble is from the US.
Yeah, but here's the tricky. We were cycling back to this problem, and I've talked about this with other people too. I think many of us are concerned with exactly that question. We are in this really strange period where the world isn't as controlled by the US as it used to be. But you can feel the crumbling and the cracks, right? If control was still really perfect, then let me put it like this. The question wouldn't be if this channel is going to be taken down one day, then the channel would never have existed.
Yeah.
Let me put it like this, right? So we are in this very strange in-between period. And to me, the big question is, are we going to get to the other side of it? That's the big question. And my great worry, and there I converge with you, is that too many people in the world, including, I suspect, very powerful people, mistake the fact that multipolarity is historically something that has to happen, a new normal, for having to do nothing or very little, for being able to sort of being able to wait until things take their shape, right? And that is disquieting. That is disquieting. I mean, you can see this tendency in various places in the world. But let me say one thing, and I'm not trying to be nice to those who represent politically the multipolar order, like Putin, Xi Jinping, Lula, whoever, right? I'm not trying to be nice. But realistically, I also have to say that it is quite possible that there is more going on than we see, right? That I would almost expect that to be the case, because there is an inherent logic when you are on the challenging side, when you are trying to revise the international system, and they should revise the international system, right? When you're on the challenger side, you're always in this very complicated situation where on one side you have to uncover your cards, because that's how you actually find solidarity and how you come together, right? If everybody is totally secretive, you can't have collective action, right? You have to uncover your cards. But on the other hand, there's also a tactical advantage in not unnecessarily exposing everything you do all the time, right?
Yes.
So I think we're in a very difficult situation, but I would totally agree with you that it is a mistake to take the emergence of multipolarity for granted. I think that's a mistake. It has to happen. That's a bit of a paradox, but also a lot of work needs to be done for it.
True. Guys, as we are continuing this conversation, for you to know, this is a weekly show. We do it every Friday at 5 p.m. Central European Time, 11 a.m. Eastern American Time. But today, exceptionally, we postponed it 1 hour later, and we started at 6 p.m. Central European Time and 12 p.m. Eastern American Time. If you are enjoying this and you find value in this conversation, the easy thing to do is just hit the like button, thumbs up as you are watching this stream, and this stream could reach to more and broader audience. And as we are at it, our dear friend Tarik, as at every week, he offers us his special offer. If you subscribe to Tarik's Substack by clicking the link in the description below, you will receive 20% off your new annual subscription, and this is valid for 2 days, so until the end of 12th of October. The link is in the description below. It is also scrolling on the screen. You can read his op-eds and his opinion articles on his Substack. Tarik, if I want to move a little bit to Ukraine and Europe, and to be honest, I wasn't shocked to read this statement at all from the Prime Minister of Poland. He says the problem with Nord Stream 2 is not that it was blown up. The problem is that it was built. And then the Foreign Minister of Hungary, he responds to him. He says, according to Donald Tusk, blowing up a gas pipeline is acceptable. That is shocking, as it makes you wonder what else could be blown up and still be considered forgivable or even praiseworthy. One thing is clear: we don't want a Europe where prime ministers defend terrorists. But I also learned today that Poland is refusing to hand over some of the suspects to Germany. And yes, I have read today also a statement for Sarah Wagenknecht. She was harshly criticizing the Chancellor of Germany. I mean, the outlook of it is horrible for Germany, having like blown up this pipeline, and now Poland not surrendering these suspects and even glorifying a terrorist act.
Yeah, look, Just to recap some basics, right? It's a while ago. It happened in 22. Maybe not everybody remembers all the details, but the attack was massive. It occurred in several places, 3 or 4, I can't quite remember. It was carried out with great amounts of explosives. But technically it was very difficult because these gas pipelines are heavily armored, right? They're not just little pipes. They're extremely heavily armored, big pipes at the bottom of a very inhospitable sea, right? And the methane, the gas that was released, is of course one of the worst climate change gases you can imagine, right? It's worse than CO2. And the amount was enormous. So people have quite rightly said, they're absolutely right, that this was actually the greatest act of specifically eco-terrorism in modern European history, and probably in European history, frankly. Yes. I mean, hard to imagine anything in the past like that. And also it happened in officially peacetime, at least between the states concerned. And perversely enough, it was carried out, this is now the official version, we will come back to this. It was carried out by a Ukrainian terrorist commando group, that's the right terms here, against Germany, while Germany is one of the fiercest supporters of Ukraine in terms of money and everything else. And Germany took all of this lying down, smiling and saying thank you for a very long time. And they're still financing the Ukrainians. They don't care, right? Yes. Initially, let's remind our viewers, the completely absurd cover story was that the Russians had done it. Of course, nobody with half a brain believed that. Not because the Russians are terribly nice, but because this was a Russian asset. Saying that the Russians blew up Nord Stream was exactly as logical as saying, oh, the Russians have just blown up Moscow just for fun. You know, it's like nothing there. And then you had people like Carlo Massala, the genius of German geopolitical analysis, in quotation marks, saying, oh, yeah, I know it looks weird. I know it looks weird because the Russians, they would have damaged themselves enormously. But you know what? That's the trick. They have damaged themselves enormously to confuse us. Right? So we went through a whole absurd period. Let's remember this. Where we were all supposed to believe the Russians did it. Now the story has changed because they couldn't possibly make this stick, right? It's a bit like the drones, by the way. Now the story has changed. And we are now supposed to believe that the Ukrainians did it, which actually is true. I'm sure the Ukrainians did do it, but they did not do it alone. The big next lie is they did it alone. And this brings us to the Poles, among others. Right? So
Thank you, America.
Exactly. We'll get to that. But when Donald Tusk, the president of Poland, says, the problem was not that it was blown up. Note the passive voice. The problem, he should really say, to be truthful, the problem wasn't that we helped blow it up. We, the Poles, helped blow it up. This is what really happened. They were definitely involved. The Ukrainian commandos set out from Poland. Poland's coastline is right there. The Poles hated Nord Stream. They were absolutely in on this. And they also had very specific financial motives which have to do with the building of alternative pipelines from Scandinavia, which nobody talks about, right? The timing was impeccable, right?
Coincidence.
So the Poles were in on it, I assure you. The US was in on it. This whole lie story that they're telling now that actually, you know, we've talked about this before. The CIA, this is the fairy tale. The CIA knew about it, but they told the Ukrainians, please don't do it.
Don't do it.
It's illegal. Because that's how the CIA works, right? When they see illegal stuff, they're like, no, it's against the law. You can't do this. Right? That's what happened in Chile, right? Because in 1973, somebody was planning a coup against the president of Chile, Allende. But the CIA heard about it. and they stopped the generals. And they said, no, you can't do this. It's against the law, right? No, that's not what happened. The coup happened, and at the end, it was killed, right? He was driven to suicide. That's how the CIA operates. So I'm sure the Poles were in on it. The Americans were in on it. And I would bet the Norwegians were in on it. And by the way, of course, MI6 and the British, they all were in on it. Even if the Ukrainians sent the little terror team that did the dirty work at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
So one reason why the Poles don't want to hand over these guys is that they don't want them to talk, right? You can think about, you can go all Tim Snyder. You know how they say, never go full moron? Never go full moron. You can go full Tim Snyder. And you can be like, oh, the Poles and the Ukrainians have become friends after their terrible history of slaughtering each other. And that's why the Poles won't hand the Ukrainian over. So let's not go full moron or full Tim Snyder. Let's be realistic. The Poles don't want to hand this guy over because he could tell the Germans that the Poles were part of it. That would be proof. Now, the perverse thing is, of course, the Germans don't want to hear that.
No.
Right? So it's a very complicated story. But obviously, the German government, not one, two at least, Scholz government and now Merz government. I don't know how one can look more humiliated. I really don't know. It's like they've been slapped in the face, left, right, in full view of the world. They've been spat on, right, by all their neighbors and the US and the Ukrainians who depend on the Germans.
That's the main issue, Tarik, that by powers that are below Germany's leverage, strength, economic, political, military. Like in politics, you don't see smaller powers humiliating or trying to humiliate and insult bigger powers
Kevork, is another hint that it wasn't the Ukrainians alone. It wasn't the Ukrainians alone. They want to hang out, these few guys, right? They become the fall guys, some of them, right? And they get nice sentences and they release them later. Don't you worry. But they want to make it about them. But of course, the Germans know that somebody else is behind this that they're really afraid of, right? Yeah. So it is an incredibly hypocritical and humiliating story. And you know what? I can't even say I fear it anymore, but I don't hope for it either. Let me put it like this. What intrigues me most is the backlash, because there will be a backlash. I'm not a nationalist. It's just not my temperament. But even I've had enough. Even I feel like, what the F? I'm a German. What the F are they doing to our country? And our government is in on it. I'm angry. I've had enough of this. I don't want to take it from the Poles. I don't want to take it from the Ukrainians. I don't want to take it from the US. And if I'm angry, you bet there are tens of millions of Germans who are even angrier. They're not saying much yet, but there will be a backlash. And in the end, this whole thing will create an enormous amount of popular animosity that didn't have to happen.
And this is the backlash that you're talking, Tarik. It's already happening, and we see in the polls in Germany. And to be honest with you, it feels to me like they're provoking the people on purpose to move into a different direction and go and vote for the AfD in this case, right? Like it looks to me like the politicians in Germany, they want for the people to vote for the AfD. And in this case, the provocations are really, I cannot but say it looks like deliberate at this point, right? As we speak, by the way, Tarik, I just received this video. This is Melania Trump says she's having direct back channel meetings and calls with Putin.
Much has unfolded since President Putin received my letter last August. He responded in writing, signaling a willingness to engage with me directly and outlining details regarding the Ukrainian children residing in Russia. Since then, President Putin and I have had an open channel of communication regarding the welfare of these children. For the past 3 months, both sides have participated in several back-channel meetings and calls, all in good faith. We have agreed to cooperate with each other for the benefit of all people involved in this war. My representative has been working directly with President Putin's team to ensure the safe reunification of children with their families between Russia and Ukraine.
Imagine, Tarik, she strikes a deal between the US and and Ukraine, and she walks away with the Nobel Peace Prize now.
They really want to get to Donald. That is it. Give it to Melania.
I'm not Donald Trump. That would be hilarious. That's the gangster act. If she breaks a deal between the US and Russia.
She can have it. I just want to see that happen. She can have it.
Oh my God. And I'm sure she would have more probably diplomatic touch into this than the rest, and Putin maybe would be more persuaded.
Look, it's very interesting, I think, actually, because first of all, I can absolutely assure you this isn't the only back channel. I'm sure there's several back channels still operating. We will get to Ryabkov and what he's been saying. I understand there's tension, but the back channels are operating. And it's interesting that this one has become public at this point. It's almost as if somebody wanted to send a signal, and that's from Washington, that says, well, I, Donald Trump, have said that I'm disappointed and I'm not happy, and I'm going to send the Ukrainians some Tomahawks to show you, Vladimir. But on the other hand, I set up my wife in front of the cameras, and she's going to send a message about how things are working out, right? That's a very interesting little balancing act, I think. And none of this is accidental. Obviously not. Come on, they're not that silly. All of this is somehow coordinated. That's politics, right? So I find this extremely interesting, actually. The other thing that this made me think of is that if you are Zelenskyy, then this type of video must be very disturbing for you. Because with Trump, I do think there clearly is a sort of zero-sum game in the way he relates to Zelenskyy and to Putin. Yes. When he doesn't like Putin, because Putin doesn't want to do what Donald wants, then Zelenskyy goes up. He starts liking Zelenskyy, right? Yeah. And when he does like Putin, then Zelenskyy goes down, right? Yeah. And right now, it looked as if Putin was no longer in good graces with the Donald. Not that Putin cares. That's one reason why Donald is so frustrated. Putin doesn't care, right? Yeah. But on the other hand, for Zelenskyy, it looked sort of good, right? Because now Zelenskyy was sort of, the teacher's pet with Donald Trump. And here, there's a new figure entering. It's very confusing, a new player. Melania is coming out. And consider how quiet Melania usually is. Melania doesn't say a lot. So this does mean something, right? This is a signal that it's almost like saying there is another way as well. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, don't you get too self-confident. Don't you get too cocksure. There always is another option here, right? Yes. It's very interesting indeed.
True. That's why I wanted to show it. Somebody sent me now saying, like, look, what is Melania saying here? And I found it really, really interesting. But you know what I also found very interesting? There is a lot of talk nowadays for a build-up in Germany. And I would like to mention, first of all, this news. And this is Germany goes full Navy mode in the Arctic. They say it is just drills, but Moscow is watching. The Bundesmarine is staging its biggest naval exercises in 30 years off Norway. Missiles, torpedoes, heavy artillery, the whole action movie package. It is all just training, they say, of course, in a remote Arctic zone, far from civilians and a little too close for Kremlin's comfort. With 100 billion in defense upgrades, Germany is not just polishing medals, it is rehearsing for worst-case scenarios with NATO flair. The Cold War is history, but Berlin's drills are giving serious sequel energy. In this case, I also want to show this video because those are all correlated. This is Kiesewetter. Kiesewetter is an MP for the CDU, the Christian Democratic Union, in the Bundestag, and this is what he said on the 7th of October of this month.
Ja, der Punkt ist ja, der Spannungsfall bedeutet ja nicht automatisch Einsatz der Bundeswehr, aber er bedeutet Ausrufung der Wehrpflicht. Und mit dieser Debatte beabsichtigt ist
das geht einher mit einer Ausrufung der Wehrpflicht.
Ja. Wir haben noch die Zeit, das jetzt vorzubereiten, rein rechtlich und rechtssicher, dass eben für alle in der Bevölkerung dann eine mögliche Dienstpflicht gelten würde, wahrscheinlich eher für die Jüngeren.
So basically, if I want to sum up this, that he's an advocate for conscription in the German army, especially for the younger generation, and this means that every man has to go and serve in the military, something that was not the case in Germany for the past how many years?
Oh, I don't know when. You know, the Wehrpflicht is suspended. Its official legal status, it's been suspended sometime in the early 2000s. When I reached the requisite age, it was still there, and I actually did serve in the army under those conditions, not for a terribly long time in the end, but yes, I did. But then in the early 2000s, it was suspended, and so de facto, young men didn't have to serve anymore. None of them, right? None of them. It had always been for a long time only a certain share, but after that, nobody had to serve, except they wanted to volunteer or become professional soldiers, right? That was always there. Now, the thing with the Spannungsfall, right? I think we should explain to our viewers, a Spannungsfall literally means case of tension, right? And what it means legally and constitutionally in Germany is that the law in Germany knows three sort of states, right? Three states that you can be in, situations, I mean. You can be at peace, you can be at war, and in between, that's the case of tension, or you could say the situation of tension. So it's a sort of pre-war status. It's a pre-war status. And when you read the legal language that defines it, that's literally what it is. It's supposed to occur when a military attack on the country is very likely, right? Likely enough so that you enter this particular pre-war state. And one thing it does is it immediately reintroduces universal conscription, but it's much more aggressive than that. It also means that civilians can be told where to work and what to do. They can be assigned, right? You no longer have the freedom to choose your work and profession. Some people may have it de facto, but the state can come to you and take it away and say, no. Let's say you are now working as a gardener, but I happen to know that you are a qualified truck driver. I need a truck driver. You're going to drive trucks now. That's literally what the state can do at this point. It can also, certain civil rights are reduced immediately. Certain very important civil rights that have to do with the secrecy of your communications. Now, we all know that our communications are definitely not secret anymore, right? But in the so-called case of tension or situation of tension, all of this becomes official, right?
Yes.
Under certain circumstances, and they're not hard, the state can actually require you to vacate your home, right? In the case of tension already, the state can come and say, well, I need this house, say, for troops, and you need to leave, right? So it's a very intense thing. It's not minor. It is close to a state of war. It's not a state of war, but it's close. Now, it was definitely never meant for a situation as the one we are in now. That's ridiculous. And that's why they're creating this hysteria. That's why we have all of these drone sightings that are a little bit like UFO sightings. And I say this hesitantly because I think some of these UFOs are much more real than these bloody drones.
Yes.
Literally. So we have this hysteria that is being concocted. And we have heard this story now for years that not only is Russia waging a war in Ukraine, which is true, that's one thing, in the very east of Ukraine, and yes, by air also in other parts. No, we have been told that Russia wants to attack us in a few years, for which there's no good evidence at all. At all. It's like the drones. It's a made-up story. We are being driven into a war scare, and in the end, a hardliner, a nutcase, frankly, like Kiesewetter, comes out and says, well, let's do it. Let's enter the state of, it's a state of emergency. The situation of tension is an official state of emergency that gives the state enormous rights. Now, the really unpleasant thing about this state of emergency, the situation of tension, is that one way you can get into it, legally speaking, is if 2/3 of parliament vote for it. 2/3 of parliament. At first, when you hear this figure, you say they don't have 2/3.
Yeah.
But if you put together CDU, the conservatives, SPD, the so-called social democrats,
Greens,
and the
FDP.
Greens, they actually could just about make the 2/3 arithmetically. Arithmetically. Now, luckily, a lot of people would probably not vote along, right? I still think it would be very hard to actually get them together, right? To get the votes in. But it is not totally impossible. It is arithmetically already imaginable in the current composition of the German parliament.
Yes.
And so if you get this sort of talk from really a fairly high-placed functionary in the ruling party, which is the CDU, it is extremely disturbing. It is extremely disturbing indeed.
Guys, I'm checking some of the comments. I don't know what is going on with some people say that a profile has been copied with the name of other people. When this stream is over, please let me know in the comments what is happening, because I have already blocked 2 people now from the chat for threatening us with reporting to YouTube for spreading misinformation and glorifying terrorism. Whatever fuck is that? So I blocked these people.
Let me explain something. Glorifying terrorism is what the Poles are doing. Blowing up Nord Stream was textbook terrorism. And we are actually critical of that terrorism, right? Let's be clear.
And please do this after this stream is over. Post it in the comments below, because I cannot follow all the live chat now. I also blocked someone who was threatening me. So look, you're free to come and participate in the conversation. We have Zionists coming and debating you, as you see in the comments. And I'm not even deleting their comments or blocking them, but threatening my channel with reporting or threatening me physically, you will be blocked. I mean, I don't believe somebody would threaten me anyways online before carrying out his threat, but time will tell. So just be careful of these people, guys. And since our moderator is not here, I would like you to comment now when this stream is over in the comments and not in the live chat, for me to understand what just happened there. But until then, I would like to say that today we have walked through several stories from Zelensky's Nobel Prize diplomacy to Russia's breaking point, from Germany's military revival to other issues, especially in the Nobel Peace Prize scope. We looked at a continent that once preached peace, now normalizing militarization, unfortunately, a leadership that confuses moral posturing with strength, and a world where peace has become a marketing slogan for perpetual war. If you found value in today's analysis, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Syriana Analysis so you don't miss future streams. These small actions, guys, help me break through the censorship algorithms and bring independent analysis to a wider audience. And if you would like to go a step further, consider supporting Syriana Analysis on Patreon, or there are different other means in the description below. And most importantly, special thanks to our dear friend Tarik Cyril Amar for always bringing value and great insights to complex issues. We try to do it with serious analysis and sometimes with laughter and sarcasm, because we believe that in this mad world, unfortunately, sometimes being too serious is probably playing in their hands, and we have to add some flavor into the discussion also to encourage the people to participate in this conversation and push back against these warmongering policies of the politicians. So thank you once again for tuning in. Thank you so much, Tarik, and we will see you next week. Also with Tarik on Friday, 5 p.m. Central European Time, 11 a.m. American Time. Peace be upon you, upon your families. Peace be upon you, Tarik. Salam.